The story begins on a dark, stormy night outside a large, imposing psychiatric hospital. Inside, asylum staff struggle to control a man strapped tightly in a straitjacket, his face hidden by a muzzle. He's fighting desperately, shouting that they have the wrong person. This man is John Trent. They throw him into a padded isolation room, the heavy door slamming shut behind him. He rushes to the window, yelling about a fight and a lucky shot. Alone in the grim room, Trent collapses as eerie music begins to play. How did this investigator end up a patient in a madhouse? To find out, we must go back. Dr. Wren, psychiatrist, arrives at the asylum the next day. He's been called in to assess the mysterious new patient, John Trent. The nervous asylum director explains Trent arrived during the night, raving and violent. Wren is led to Trent's cell. The walls are completely covered, floor to ceiling, with hundreds of crudely drawn black crosses. Trent, no longer restrained but bearing the marks of his ordeal, turns to face the doctor. Wren tries to understand Trent's story. Trent, though broken, still has a spark of his old cynical attitude. He agrees to talk, accepting a cigarette from Wren. It all began, he explains, when the famous author Sutter Cain vanished. Before all this chaos, John Trent was a highly successful insurance investigator. He specialized in exposing fraud, relying only on facts and logic. He was a master debunker, scoffing at anything supernatural. We see him skillfully proving a businessman faked a fire, using photos of the man's wife wearing jewelry reported as destroyed. For Trent, reality was simple: what you could prove. While meeting his contact, Robinson. At a coffee shop, Trent gets a new case offer. Cain Publishing, a major book publisher, needs help. Their biggest author, the horror sensation Sutter Cain, has disappeared. Just as Robinson mentions Cain's name, a strange man carrying an axe appears outside the shop window, staring intensely at Trent. Suddenly, with a deafening crash, the Axeman smashes through the window. Panic erupts. Ignoring everyone else, he walks directly to Trent, his eyes disturbingly inhuman. He leans in close and asks calmly, "Do you read Sutter Cain?" He raises the axe to strike, but police outside react instantly, shooting him down. Trent is left stunned, staring at the dead man. Later that night, still reeling, Trent watches the news. Violent riots are breaking out as fans clamor for Cain's upcoming book, In the Mouth of Madness. The media questions if Cain's fiction is inciting dangerous behavior. Trent pours himself a drink, deeply unsettled. Who exactly is Sutter Cain? The following day, Trent visits Cain Publishing. The lobby walls display Cain's incredibly detailed and disturbing book cover art. Grotesque creatures, scenes of body horror, unsettling transformations. He meets the head of the publishing house, Jackson Harglow. His editor, Linda Stiles. Harglow lays out the situation. Sutter Cain, a writer more popular than Stephen King, vanished 2 months ago. Before disappearing, he sent only partial chapters of his new book to his agent. Trent immediately suspects a publicity stunt, but Harglow delivers a chilling connection. The agent who received those pages was the axe-wielding man who attacked Trent. Stiles adds another disturbing detail. Cain's books have been known to cause strange side effects in some readers: disorientation, paranoia, memory loss. Even Cain staff working on his manuscripts reported severe headaches and nosebleeds. Trent remains skeptical, thinking it's an elaborate marketing ploy. But Harglow insists the situation is genuine and hires Trent to find Cain, or, failing that, the complete manuscript for In the Mouth of Madness. He tells Trent to study Cain's previous novels for clues. Linda warns him, ominously, that reading Cain's work might have unexpected consequences. Trent begins reading Cain's backlog, including the infamous The Hobbs End Horror. As he reads, strange incidents start occurring around him. In a bookstore, an intense young man stares at him and says pointedly, "He sees you." The intense reading brings on splitting headaches. Walking through the city at night feels different, more threatening. He witnesses a brutal police beating in an alley beneath the graffiti, "I can see." The officer involved confronts Trent aggressively. The boundary between Cain's fiction and Trent's reality begins to crumble, especially in a terrifyingly vivid nightmare. He finds himself back in a dark subway tunnel, facing the same alley cop, but now the cop's face is monstrously distorted. The axe-wielding agent reappears, leading a mob of armed, menacing figures towards Trent. He wakes up shaken, trying to convince himself it's just the books affecting him, but the fear feels real. This is more bizarre details. Unexplained ink smudges on his hands, difficulty performing simple actions. Then, while examining the book covers, Trent has an epiphany. He cuts out sections from several different covers and arranges the pieces. They fit together perfectly, forming a map. He rushes back to Cain, lays his discovery before Harglow and Styles, overlaying it on a real map of New England. The book covers pinpoint the exact location of Hobbs End, a place absent from modern maps, yet undeniably there. Trent declares his intention to go to Hobbs End. Harglow readily agrees, instructing Styles to accompany him. The strange journey begins. They drive out into the remote New England wilderness. The landscape becomes increasingly isolated and strange as night falls. They inevitably get lost. Styles argues Hobbs End can't be real. As Trent sleeps, Styles drives, and they discuss the unsettling idea that reality might just be a shared belief. Styles suggests that if enough people believe Cain's horrific world, it could overwrite our own, leaving the sane few isolated in madness. While Trent dozes, Styles has disturbing visions on the dark road. She sees a boy on a bicycle, riding erratically. He passes and disappears. Later, he appears again, much closer. This time, his face momentarily flashes into the face of a terrified, ancient-looking old man. Styles gasps just as Trent wakes. Suddenly, the boy is directly in their path. Styles swerves violently, hitting him. They rush out to find the boy on the ground, his face unnaturally distorted, features disturbingly wrong, mirroring Trent's nightmare figures. He whispers, "He won't let me out," before impossibly leaping up, grabbing his bike, and pedaling away into the pitch-black night. Styles is terrified. Trent tries to brush it off as local weirdness, but Styles understands they've crossed into something deeply unnatural. The next day, they reach the coordinates from the map, a hilltop overlooking an empty valley. Hobbs End isn't there. Trent is furious, thinking it was a dead end. But then, both Trent and Styles are hit by a wave of dizziness, a sharp buzzing sound, and sudden nosebleeds. When the strange episode passes, they look down again. The town of Hobbs End now rests in the valley below. It has simply appeared. Styles implies that reading Cain's books has altered their perception, making them ready to see the town. They drive down into the impossible town. Hobbs End is a perfect decaying replica of Cain's descriptions. The buildings seem slightly warped, angles subtly wrong, creating a sense of unease. Styles seems to know the layout intuitively from the books, guiding Trent to the Pickman Hotel. Inside, the elderly Mrs. Pickman greets them with unsettling cheerfulness, claiming she's never heard of Sutter Cain. Her laughter at one of Trent's remarks is disturbingly prolonged and manic. While Mrs. Pickman is occupied, Styles stares at a mundane painting of cows in the lobby. For a split second, she thinks she sees one of the painted animals move. In their room, Trent argues desperately against what he's seeing. "This isn't real," he insists. Styles calmly points out how every detail matches Cain's books, including Mrs. Pickman's character, who becomes a killer in the novels. Trent demands proof. Styles walks to the window, pulls aside the curtains, and reveals the iconic black church standing exactly where Cain's fiction placed it. Trent is speechless. The impossible is real. They are inside a story. Using Cain's novel as their guide, they walk towards the imposing black church. Styles is visibly tense. Suddenly, a car carrying armed townspeople screeches to a halt nearby. Their leader, a large bearded man, shouts defiantly at the church. A horrible grinding noise answers. The heavy doors open slightly, revealing a small boy. The bearded man cries out his son's name, "Johnny!" But the doors flap like broken wings, and in a flash, Sutter Cain himself appears in the doorway, radiating a terrifying aura. The doors slam shut. Vicious Dobermans then emerge from the church grounds, attacking the armed men. Gunfire erupts. Amidst the chaos, Trent and Styles flee, running directly into a strange little girl. Her face is subtly deformed, teeth sharp, dried blood around her mouth. Styles asks who she is. "The end," the girl replies with a chilling smile, before running off to join other distorted children who are tormenting a dog. Back in the relative safety of the hotel, Trent snaps. He starts packing, convinced it's all an elaborate hoax by Harglow and Cain. Styles finally reveals a partial truth. Cain was initially supposed to disappear for publicity, but then he truly vanished. Harglow sent her with Trent, hoping he'd create a sensational, fabricated story. They weren't supposed to find this. But Styles now understands the horror is undeniably real. Everything happening is straight from Cain's unpublished manuscript, In the Mouth of Madness. She tells Trent the book chronicles the end of reality itself, beginning here in Hobbs End, as an ancient evil returns, starting with the children. Styles urges Trent to examine the lobby paintings again. He goes down, finding the pastoral scenes have now fully transformed into horrific, photorealistic images of monstrosities and suffering. Mrs. Pickman appears, her eyes now red and unblinking. Trent hears a noise and catches a glimpse behind the counter. Her husband, bound and looking centuries old, being tormented while she smiles vacantly. "I'm hungry," she whispers to Trent, advancing. Trent flees back upstairs in terror. Meanwhile, Styles, drawn outside, is confronted by the group of changed children. The little girl calls her Mommy and says it's Mommy's day. Terrified, Styles runs towards the sanctuary of the Black Church. Trent finds their room empty. Styles enters the dark, ruined church. Reading the dire warning carved on the doors, she climbs the stairs to the steeple tower. Finding a trap door, she hears typing from within. She enters the attic room. Sutter Cain sits typing, his back to her. "Welcome, Linda," he says without turning. "You can edit this one from the inside." As she warily approaches, a wet, squishing sound accompanies his typing. He explains the change started with the children and spread. "Now," he says, "they're all becoming what I've already become," Cain finishes. He stands and turns. Styles is frozen in silent horror. Cain's back has split open, revealing a second monstrous face and form, a living, grotesque embodiment of his fiction. He grabs her. "My stories are real," Cain declares, forcing Styles towards the manuscript. He shoves her face into the pages of In the Mouth of Madness. "Read it, Linda. See your true self." As her eyes scan the words, they begin to bleed thick, dark blood. She lets out a piercing, inhuman scream. "I can see!" Back in the hotel room, Trent is awakened by violent banging. He opens the door to Styles, covered in blood, seemingly catatonic. She collapses. As he lays her on the bed, her eyes snap open. She clutches him desperately. "Don't read the book, John," she gasps. "He's opened the door. It started." I looked, and now I'm losing me. Tell me I'm real. She dissolves into tortured screams. Trent rushes out seeking help, but the hotel is deserted. He hears the noise from the basement again. He descends to find Mrs. Pickman fully revealed, perched on writhing tentacles, dismembering her husband with an axe. She turns her monstrous gaze on Trent and smiles. "You want some too?" Trent scrambles away in terror. He runs past the lobby paintings, now vivid scenes of hellish transformation. He bursts into their room. Styles is gone. The walls are deeply gouged. He hears a giggle from the bathroom. Thick slime oozes under the door. Outside, the town is consumed by chaos. The bathroom door opens. Stiles emerges, her back turned. "We are home," she says in a warped voice. She turns around. Half her face is gone, replaced by a hideous, distorted mass of flesh. Her eye rolls wildly. "I'm losing me!" she shrieks, launching herself at Trent, throwing him out into the hall. Trent flees into the nightmarish streets. He ducks into the bar, now destroyed. The injured bearded man is still there. He warns Trent that reality is unraveling. Then, tentacles erupt violently from the man's back. "I have to," he groans, before ending his own suffering with his shotgun. Trent runs outside again, only to be confronted by the fully transformed Stiles, leading a mob of the town's monstrous inhabitants. He knocks Stiles down, drags her to the car, but she impossibly swallows the keys. As the mob surges forward, Trent frantically hotwires the ignition and speeds away, monstrous hands smashing through the car windows. He races down the dark highway, but finds himself inexplicably looping back into Hobbs End, again and again. He sees the creature that was Stiles crawling on his car, then riding with the spectral cyclist boy, relentlessly pursuing him. Escape seems impossible. Trent, almost numb now, drives back into town. The mob awaits. Suddenly, Stiles lunges directly in front of the car. Trent swerves violently, crashing into a truck. His world goes black. Trent awakens inside the black church, seated in a confessional. Cain's voice speaks from the other side, delivering the final, devastating truth. Trent is merely a character Cain invented. His entire ordeal was written to ensure he would deliver the completed manuscript of In the Mouth of Madness back to the real world, triggering the apocalypse. Cain shows Trent pages describing his own actions. Behind Cain, the very fabric of reality rips open, revealing a portal to a dimension of chaos. Cain holds up the finished book. "Yours to deliver, John," he commands. "Spread the word." Then, with terrifying strength, he hurls Trent out of the steeple window. As Trent falls, Cain tears the portal wider. A swirling vortex of absolute darkness erupts from the church, consuming everything in its path. Hobbs End vanishes into nothingness. Trent runs for his car, speeding away as the encroaching void devours the world behind him. He glimpses horrific shapes ahead before crashing the car again. Trent wakes up in the wrecked car. It's daytime. He seems to be back in the normal world. He flags down a newspaper boy and tries to explain that he's a character in a book. The boy thinks he's crazy and leaves. Trent eventually gets a ride back to New York. He checks into a rundown motel. The manuscript of In the Mouth of Madness reappears mysteriously. He burns it in a desperate, futile gesture. He boards a bus, trying to escape. On the bus, an old woman transforms into Cain, who taunts him about the color blue. Trent snaps awake to find everything on the bus is blue. He screams. After being calmed, Trent makes one last attempt to warn the authorities about Hobbs End. A government clerk checks records and confirms no such town ever existed. Walking through the bus terminal, Trent sees derelicts whose faces subtly distort into familiar monstrous shapes. He backs away, bumping into a police officer whose face momentarily flashes into Cain's. Trent finally breaks completely and attacks the officer. And that's how Trent ended up institutionalized. A flashback reveals his final meeting with Harglow after returning. Harglow confirms the book was published. Trent delivered it. Linda Stiles never existed. And the movie rights? Already sold. The world succumbs to madness. News reports show global chaos, violence, insanity, all linked to Cain's book. Trent, now homeless and broken, confronts a reader. "Like it?" he asks. The reader, blood leaking from his eyes, says, "Love it." Trent reveals an axe and attacks, fully consumed by the madness. Back in the present, in his asylum cell, Trent finishes telling his story to Dr. Wren. He warns the doctor that Cain's reality has won. Humanity is finished. Wren leaves, deeply disturbed. Later, Wren himself witnesses the growing madness outside the asylum walls, even in his own home. Sometime later, Trent awakens to find the asylum destroyed and empty. He wanders out into a desolate world. He finds a movie theater. Playing now, In the Mouth of Madness. The movie poster features his own face. He gets popcorn, sits alone in the empty theater. The movie begins, showing the very first scene of him being dragged into the asylum. He watches his own life, his own suffering, play out on screen. The horrifying truth hits him. He was just a puppet. His entire existence was scripted by Cain to bring about the end. Fiction is reality. Overwhelmed by the cosmic horror, John Trent begins to laugh. A wild, broken, echoing laugh in the darkness, the sole audience member for the apocalypse he unknowingly delivered.